You're now, that's what's important. We experience a collapse in our life structure most of the time because we fail to funeralize failed yesterdays. You have to be strong enough basically to realize you can elevate out of your current situation. Instead of looking at where you think you should be by now, look at where you have grown out of. There are many individuals who need help with their blueprint, and I want to be that vessel, nothing special, just that mouthpiece to inspire you to construct the best version of your life that you can be. Welcome to the Life Structure with Eric podcast. I am your host, Eric. Thank you for tapping in on this amazing day. Hopefully, everyone's day is going fantastic. Heard something the other day, and I thought I would use it. If your day isn't going fantastic, don't you dare go messing nobody else's up. I heard that the other day, and I thought that was one of the coolest things. But anyway, thank you for tapping in. You know how we always start. Use that index finger and hit that share button. Share it out. Share it with your family, your friends, co-workers. Have an amazing topic that we're going to be discussing today. And yeah, you definitely need to share it. It's going to be a great, great topic. Thank you guys so much, everyone that has been listening in. I've seen some amazing testimonies of people that's applying some of the tools that we give here on the podcast. They've been actually applying them in their life. They've been sending me some amazing emails about how great things have been happening in their life. Um, Also to the all of you that take the time to do those monthly donations for sponsorship. I appreciate you guys. Those donations definitely help me keep this podcast afloat on these platforms. So thank you guys that take the time to do those monthly donations. And yeah, next month, February, February 17th to be exact, is going to be the podcast's 3-year anniversary. It's going to be 3 years. Seems like it was only yesterday that I started this platform, but yeah, next month, February 17th, will actually be 3 years since we birthed this platform. Really been praying, trying to figure out the next, if I want to continue this platform or not. So it's something that I definitely have been praying on, if I will continue it or not. So you guys keep me lifted in prayer, and I pray that God speaks to me in the next few weeks. I can make a firm decision on if I will continue it on or if I will see what my next is. But anyway, yeah, thank you guys for tapping in. Today I have a good friend of mine. Good friend of mine. We met almost a year ago now in a men's group. And it's just been life changing ever since I connected with him and the other guys. I actually had them all on the podcast last year, and I handpicked him for to be on with me today because he's an amazing guy. He's so humble, but when he speaks, he just drops so much knowledge that can be life changing. I've grown so much from just being in the group with him, having the one-on-ones with him. You know, he recently had a loss in his family. I recently had a loss in my family, and we basically just pushed each other, and we still continue to push each other through that process. And that's kind of what we're going to be talking about today. Just going through the emotions, the grieving process, being stressed out and, sometimes the anger that we take on, when we lose a loved one. So, anyways, at this time, I'm going to welcome my good friend all the way from Australia, uh, my brother Neville Starrick. Welcome to the show, man. I know I might have butchered your last name, so I'm gonna let you reintroduce yourself. How's it going, Neville?
Well, thanks, Eric. You did just fine. That was exactly the way that I would have introduced it. So thank you, and so glad to be on the show with you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, man. I appreciate you for taking the time to be on the show with me. And refresh my memory again. How many hours ahead of us are you?
I'm currently about 18 hours ahead because we're on daylight savings, but at other times of the year it'd be 17. So at the moment, yeah, we're at very different times of the day.
Good deal. Good deal. Well, I appreciate it. I'm glad that it's morning there and it's not too late. So, because I know sometimes I have a few people that's located around the country, and it's hard to make it happen because either it's going to be in the wee hours of the morning for them or the wee hours in the morning for me. And I'm like, we'll make it work at another time. So, glad that we made it comfortable for each other. So, before we jump in, Neville, tell us a little bit about you, what it is that you do, and a little bit about you.
Um, it's kind of where do I start with that question? It's like, as far as work is concerned, I'm a counseling therapist. I've been in the therapy space now since 2008, and we're working with clients around helping them to work through mental, emotional, spiritual kind of crisis type of stuff, and also growing through to develop as a person in whatever way, shape, or form that takes. So. Prior to that, I was an elementary school teacher, but left that after a few years and had a little bit of a wander for a little while where I was not really quite sure what my career was going to be before I then moved into the counseling space. And that was interesting. I've lived overseas a few times. I haven't always been in Australia. I was actually not born in Australia at all. So I've lived in 4 countries so far. And yeah, I'm married, have no children at this point, and yeah, what else would you like to know, Eric?
Um, man, you kind of summed it up. You kind of summed it up pretty nice there. I'm sure if it's something else that I can think of, I'll ask you throughout. But yeah, as I stated, we both kind of suffered a loss in the last I'm gonna say 5 months. We both suffered a major loss in our families, and I know for you, it was, a very, very hard time that you went through, as well as myself. And as I stated in the intro, a lot of times when we go through this, you go through a lot of emotions, and the grieving process can be very, very difficult, you know. And, we all know that we all have our predestined date and time that we're going to go. But, when it happens the way that it happens, that question always happens to come up, why? And I know we're not supposed to question God, but that question comes up. And then because we can't really get a definite logical answer, then basically we can get angry. We start to stress out. Our emotions is all over the place. Um, let's talk about that. Why is it that a lot of people, it's just like I'll just start with the anger comes from the
Okay. Gonna just backtrack just a little bit before we start delving into some of the specifics around a grieving process
definitely.
because yeah, what I basically have come to realize is that emotions are neither good nor bad. They're present. And the reason for the emotions being there is that they're giving us some information. They're like a signal for something for us who are experiencing them. Now, some of those signals are signals that we like. We enjoy them, they feel good, and we would like to have them around a lot. And then there are other signals that are more difficult. There are other signals that feel quite unpleasant, or they stir things up in us that don't feel that good at all. And unfortunately, our society basically says it's like you need to choose between them. It's like go for the good ones and ignore the bad ones. Don't try to downplay the bad ones or ignore them and so on. But the problem with that is that those uncomfortable, unpleasant emotions that we experience are giving us information. And to ignore that information is to actually cut ourselves off from something that would actually help us to work our way through whatever is going on for us. Now, a lot of times the unpleasant and uncomfortable emotions that we experience are giving us pointers around something that we are holding within ourselves or something about our circumstances that might need to change that we otherwise wouldn't do anything with. So if we were always living with pleasant emotions, nothing would ever change. We'd kind of sit there and say, life is good. It's almost like we've reached this state of bliss, and nothing nothing would ever change. We probably wouldn't do anything because it's like we've hit our comfort spot, and
Mm,
that is exactly where we would stay if the emotions didn't stay. Now, I like to think of emotions of like they've got the word motion in it. They're propelling us away from or towards something, and that whole motion that goes on, we can choose how to direct that motion of the emotion. There's a lot of energy that can come with that, or a depletion of energy that can come with that, and those things are connected. So, what I'm actually feeling will actually generate energy for me to do something, or it will reduce energy so that I'm not able to do certain things. And that's important to be aware of. So, when we come to grieving, as you said, has got a whole mix of emotions. And every person's grief will be different. The mix of emotions will be different for each person because it's dependent very much on what the loss actually is. Now, we've just been talking about the loss of a family member's death, the loss of a family member through death. Okay, but there are other kinds of losses that where grief shows up. Anytime there is a major change in your life, there's often a grief process that gets initiated with that, because where there's change, you lose things from the way the world has been. Even if you're moving towards something that's better, you have to leave some things behind, and there can be some grieving that goes on. And what I find is that a lot of people don't understand that. We know and expect grief when somebody dies, but we don't know that grief can be attached to other things. And so, therefore, we can experience some of these emotions that are often associated with the grief process, but not realize it's grief. And so we end up
mm,
going, I don't understand this emotion. This doesn't make any sense. And there's an intensity about the emotions that I'm experiencing that doesn't feel appropriate for where I'm at, or it seems out of place for the life that I'm in. And one of the questions that I've learned to ask people when they're realizing these kind of struggles with emotion is what's changed? What's changed recently? Um, it's surprising because often when I ask that question, people will have a very clear sense of, oh, this has happened, but I should be okay with that, and they'll discount it. But when we sit there and unpack it, the change that they've experienced actually has a whole bunch of layers to it and a lot of meaning attached to it. And there are losses that have come with that change that haven't been acknowledged, but somehow your mind and your body know that there's been a loss, even if you haven't consciously been aware of it. Your mind and your body know, and they're giving you signals to say the change has happened, and some of the things that we've lost have been really important to us.
mm.
So, therefore, there is this kind of internal reaction that goes on, which we experience as emotion, and we might experience as some strange kind of thinking that we don't normally think about. So, hmm,
Yeah. I, I like how you said we can choose to direct that emotion,
hmm,
so we have a choice.
we
We
do.
have a choice on how we choose to direct that emotion and
Yep.
basically looking at, basically what's changed
Mm,
to make me feel these emotions that I'm feeling.
mm.
You know, um,
Let me
oh,
let me just highlight there for a second.
mhm,
The feeling of emotion is something that's a normal thing for us as human beings. It's like we all feel things all the time. So emotion is present with us whether we recognize it or not. Okay. Um, the expression of emotion is not the same as the feeling of emotion. And I think sometimes we get confused about that, particularly when we start talking about things like anger. I know that I had a huge amount of difficulty with the emotion of anger. I didn't like how it made me feel. I didn't like the intensity that would show up, and I also didn't like some of the expressions of anger that I saw around me, and I didn't want to go into those expressions of anger. So I was kind of getting confused between I'm feeling angry about something and I don't want to act in a particular way, and so therefore, my solution for a long time was like, let's shut down anger and not even pay any attention to it and let's pretend it's not even there. That wasn't helpful because, as I said right at the beginning there, it's like the emotion is there, it's signaling something that I need to pay attention to. And pretending that it's not there or pushing it away actually doesn't resolve anything, it just makes it worse. So now this emotion is fighting doubly hard to be heard. So, okay, you didn't pay attention the first time, so I'm going to come back again. And it might be an increase in intensity of the feeling that you had, or it might outwork its way in other ways through your body. So, emotions that are not attended to will find a way to get attention. So sometimes
yeah,
you can have weird kind of body sensations that don't seem to have any
mhm,
physical cause, like stomach clenching, lots of tension in your body. You might feel sick, you might feel headachy, you might feel a whole bunch of things because there are emotions that are trying to get your attention. We need to look at this. And then you go to the doctor, and the doctor says there's no physical cause for what's going on. So, in those kind of cases, there's a pretty good chance that your emotions are tapping into your body and sort of using your body to try and get you to pay attention. There's something here you need to pay attention to. Okay. Mm,
yeah. That's good. That's good because if you don't deal with it, then it's gonna cause you to act out. And,
mm,
you reminded me of something when you said shutting down that anger and acting like it's not there. That can cause an uh, huge domino effect. You can carry it into your workplace.
yep.
It can bleed over on, your loved ones.
Mm,
Um, you can just it can make you have road rage. It's just so many different ways you can act out from that. Let's say you have an issue with your spouse
mm,
and something very, very bad went wrong in your relationship and you're dealing with these emotions internally,
mm,
but you're not talking about it and
mm,
you're walking around and it gets to the point that it's bottling over and you're going to work and then your work performance is going to go down because you're carrying it into the workplace with you and you're starting to act out in ways that you normally wouldn't.
mm,
You're always angry,
mm,
about everything you do, you're angry. And it gets to the point that no one wants to be around you
mm,
because they feel like, you're always angry.
mm,
And they don't like the way that basically you're living out your emotions, the way that you're living through them, is starting to affect all of the people that's around you.
And what you're describing there is the expression of the emotion. The expression
Yeah.
of the emotion is actually creating barriers for you to being connected. And one of the reasons when you're shutting down emotion, it takes a lot of energy to ignore your emotions, and
Mhm.
all of that energy that you're investing in not feeling whatever it is that you're trying to avoid means that you've got less to give to other parts of your life. So basically, you're coming into, say, your workplace situation. I don't have the tolerance for the people interactions or for the minutia of my work. I don't have the tolerance for that because I've got so much energy being siphoned away in trying to keep these emotions at bay and not facing them. So therefore, I've got less to give in other parts of my life. And that's something I guess a lot of people don't pay attention to. It's like, okay, I don't want to feel this emotion, but rather than face it and deal with it, it's like we go
Mhm.
and try and hide it or numb it. And this can be a way of addictions getting a hold on us, is that we're sitting there ignoring what's going on inside of us because it hurts too much or it's too uncomfortable or it's something that we just don't like and we don't want to deal with. And so therefore we'll get involved in some kind of addictive behavior to help us get those good feelings back. But those good feelings are not actually dealing with the negative, or the not negative, they're not dealing with the emotions that you're not facing. They're just covering them up. And
Yeah.
and those good feelings are a mask. They're not real. They're being totally fabricated to make up for these feelings that you don't want to face.
Yeah. So you said addictive behaviors. So what are some of these behaviors that some people may indulge in to kind of camouflage
Mm.
what they're really going through?
Well, I'm sure that we all have our own little set of what we consider to be addictive behaviors, and some of the common
Mhm.
ones, some of the ones that we easily recognize as addictive can be things like alcohol or some of your drug addictions. But there are other things that you can be addicted to that can be a cover up for emotions that you don't want to deal with, and some of it could be
Yeah.
work. I can throw myself into being busy, and I've
Mhm.
caught myself doing that at times because it's like sometimes the feelings feel really overwhelming. So I'll get in and I'll get busy and do something else so I don't have to think about it and I don't have to feel what's going on here. So work can be an addictive compulsion. Some people can get involved in gambling. Some people can get involved in sex. Some people can get involved in food, using food to comfort themselves. And the whole purpose of the addiction is to try and make ourselves feel better. Um, and short term, there may be some positive effect, but long term, the addiction itself becomes a problem.
Yeah.
So those behaviors become a problem. And yeah, if we can actually deal with the initial uncomfortable feelings that are showing up, we wouldn't need to go down the addictive route. It wouldn't be necessary.
Ooh, that's good.
Mm,
That's real good. So, what is a how can you take precautions? If you're someone that's, you know, going through this, what I know many would say, um, try to grab counseling.
mm.
What would you suggest?
Well, I guess it depends upon what's going on here, and what your circle of connections are. If you've got safe relationships where you can talk about what's really going on for you, that could be a good first port of call. Your network of connections
Mhm.
often will give you the opportunity to begin to work through what it is that's going on. Now, they're not trained counselors, most of them, and that's fine. what they offer as friends can often be enough to work your way through. However, there can be times when you're sitting there going, it's like, the issues that I'm dealing with, either I don't feel like I have safe people to talk to about, or the people that I do talk to, they are that there's only so much that I can share with them. There might be some things that I don't want to share with them about what's going on, that I don't wish to bring to the table in that particular relationship. In those kind of situations, accessing a counselor might be a really good idea, or a priest or a pastor or somebody who can hold things in confidence. Because I mean, sometimes the emotions that we feel are attached to some really painful things, and there are times when I think we tell ourselves we don't want to burden the people in our networks. We want to keep them from not having to carry what it is that I'm carrying, or carry me in the midst of that. So we often do a little bit of protective stuff for the people that we love, and we don't tell them things because we think that if they knew, it would be a source of distress for them. Now, we're making a decision for them. I mean, they may be more able to cope with this than we think they are, but that's about us. It's about what am I prepared to share. And sometimes having an impartial space with a counselor or a psychologist, or someone who is in a space that can hold a confidential area for you, can be a really, really good avenue to begin to unpack that. And my recommendation is that if it does affect the other people in your network, that there will come a point that might be helpful to share some of that, what you do in the counseling space, with your wider group. But that's your call. You get to decide what you do with that.
Yeah.
Mm,
But why is it though that some people are just so angry that they tend to just isolate? You're going through something and it's like you want to block everybody out,
mhm,
and you just find yourself isolating. Uh, and if you're not in tune with everything, you don't even realize that with you blocking everyone out and isolating,
mhm,
you're really just backing yourself in that corner in a much darker place,
mm,
because the weight of everything that you're going through, it just tends to get heavier and heavier because, like you just said, those emotions, we can choose how we direct it. But
mm,
if you're just keeping everything in internally and you're not talking about it,
mm,
it can, like you said, the addictions come and all of that other stuff.
mm,
And some people, they're so weak that it could be even to the point that they may consider suicide, because I'm going to call them demons,
mm,
that just starts to talk to you and make you think that you're less than and there's no reason to live. And before you know it, you're just in a very, very dark place. And that dark place can lead you to have, emotional breakdowns,
mm,
and,
mm.
you're just in a very bad space.
Yeah. Now, let me just give a little bit of background around anger, because anger is one of those emotions that there are some very mixed messages about it, and society generally doesn't like anger. I mean, oddly, they'll present anger in lots of movie type of situations, but
Mhm.
anger is usually considered, it's expressed as something that's loud and that's often associated with violence. Now, I want you to be really, really clear that anger and violence are not synonymous. You can be angry and not be violent. So they don't go together. They don't have to go together. One of the other things that we need to be aware of is that anger is often built on other emotions. It's there for a reason, but there are a whole bunch of other emotions that are fueling it, and that the range of emotions will vary from situation to situation. So, um, let me give you a little bit of an example from my own experience. When I was in my late 20s, I had a really, really difficult year. I had a whole bunch of things that happened, all in like one thing after another, and I got to a stage where by the middle of that particular year, I was there were so many things that had changed that had been out of my control that I was really, really struggling. And at that stage, I was not particularly self-aware. I kind of knew that I was feeling really uncomfortable feelings about all the changes that had happened, but I didn't want to face them because I felt like if I faced them, it was going to be overwhelming. And so I didn't, or I plunged myself into activity, which made things worse because not only was I sitting there emotionally investing a whole bunch of energy and not looking at things, but then I used up my physical energy as well. And so I basically was getting close to physical and emotional collapse. Not a good space at all. And
Mhm.
it was pretty awful. I mean, in that space of time, I had had a relationship that had ended. I had a job that I had been involved a job that I had actually liked doing. Suddenly, it discontinued. It was just like the powers that be had decided that they were no longer going to keep that job going, which forced me to then work out like, what do I need to do? I don't have a job to go forward to. And so I had financial stress that worked with that. Uh, in the summer of that year, I'd been involved in a group at my church that I'd been on the leadership team, and at the end of the summer, the leadership team had dwindled into basically being me, and I was tired. The summer had been tough. Our the team had been, I think, 7 people at the beginning of the year. By the summer, it was down to 3, and then by September, it was down to 1. And I was being asked to then go on start another team, and I was exhausted. I had so much stuff that was going on, and I was everything was very much up in the air, and I had taken on extra stuff. So it was not fun. I had people that were starting to notice that I wasn't quite myself. I had somebody, I think in October, said to me, "It's like you're angry all the time," and I was a bit shocked that somebody was using that term against me because I didn't see it. But I sort of listened, and it was just like, "Oh, well, what do you mean? I'm angry all the time?" It's just like, and gave me some examples and stuff like that. And the basic gist of it, and I mean, this is in a church context, was like, you need to stop being angry, and that inflamed the anger for me because it was like I'm sitting there going, um, I've got good reasons to be angry. And then I started listing off like with this person,
Yeah.
and I was in a
Yeah.
quite angry tone as well. It's like the all these things have happened, and then to top it all off, the person who was confronting me about me being angry, there had been an abandonment there because he had been on the leadership team, and then he had stepped off the leadership team, and no one had communicated to me what was going on. So
Mm.
I had suddenly found myself feeling completely abandoned by all of these people who had made decisions that they'd never communicated to me or even told me they were considering it. And I was finding myself stuck in this leadership role that I didn't particularly want, and not having anybody there that had been there from the previous leadership team, and feeling very much like I'd been left out to dry.
Mhm.
And so here it was. Here is this person confronting me who'd been part of that whole situation. And so there were a few home truths that I sort of threw out there in my anger, which I think confronted him with what I was dealing with and also his role in that. And that was neither here nor there what his role was in it. The fact was that I was angry, and my anger had been built on a whole bunch of things. I was feeling abandoned. I was feeling frightened. I was feeling under pressure. I was very stressed about my circumstances. Um, and the abandonment was on multiple levels. I mean, here it is, I'd lost a girlfriend, and I'd also lost the support of a team. And then I was physically depleted as well. So all of these things were all conspiring, and the anger was coming out there. Now, as I reflected on this many years later, the realization was that the anger had showed up. It was actually trying to help me. Now, nobody thought it was helpful. I certainly didn't, and people around me who were noticing expressions of anger certainly weren't. But the realization was is that the anger was generating a whole bunch of energy in me to try and bring some change into the situation. So
Yeah.
the anger is there. It's signaling something needs to be different, and it's mobilizing a lot of energy in your system to begin to make some change. Now, I didn't know what I could do. I felt somewhat powerless in the situation. I felt like a lot of things there had been decisions that other people had made that had rippled out and had effect on me that I wasn't expecting. And then there were circumstances that I'm sitting there going, I just don't know how to deal with this. So here's all this energy in my system that anger is sitting there going, it's like, I'm here to help you make some change. And I'm sitting there going, I don't know where to direct it.
Mm.
And there was a personality thing that comes into play as well. I tend to be quite introverted, and I have quite a strong introvert preference. And so I will tend to favor it going internally to process things rather than going out here and talking it out and sorting it all out. And there's a limit to how much the person with an introvert preference can process internally. So there comes a point where they actually have to kind of put it out there and start looking at it. And I hadn't reached that point yet, but I had also got to a point where I was stuck and didn't know what to do with it. Because of the experience of abandonment, because of the experience of losing significant relationships, I didn't know where to go to ask for help or to talk to people about what I was going through. I just I just felt like, well, I'd lost all the people that I would have talked to, and I don't know with the responses that I've been getting or the distance that has been there whether or not I can actually go to them. And of course, there was some resentment there for some of them for some of the ways that they had acted that had put me in the position that I was
Mhm.
in. So I had that to work through too. Um, so here I was sitting there going, I don't know what to do with it. So the anger ended up turning inward. I started the anger started getting directed at myself. Why can't I deal with this? What is wrong with me that I'm struggling with this? What is wrong with me that I can't find a job that I want, or that I don't even know what is the job that I want? What is wrong with me that I lost a relationship, lost a girlfriend? It was just like there were a whole bunch of things that started going internal, and that then ended up spiraling for me into an experience of depression. And so it's just like they kind of all can move, all these emotions can kind of blend into each other after a while if you don't deal with them. And I wasn't dealing with them. And so I mean, I was struggling. I was making ends meet, but just barely. I was physically
Mhm.
depleted. I was emotionally really, really stuck, and feeling really like I've got lots of unpleasant emotions that are too hard for me to look at on my own. And yet I also don't know where I can go or who I can talk to about what I'm going through, who would be a safe person to go to. So I kind of carried that for a little while. And it was actually not until a friend of mine offered me a house sitting option. I mean, the year ended with me being given notice to leave where I was living. And that was just the last straw for me. It was just like I just can't believe things can't get any worse. And and a friend offered me to do some house sitting to tide me over until I could sort of sort out where I was going to live, and that gave me space. I pulled out of everything that I was doing and um, gave myself time to heal and time to actually sit with what was going on and what had happened and the changes and the grieving around like things were not the way that they had started the year with, and I'd lost some relationships that were important to me. I had lost a little bit of security that had been really quite important to me. Um, I had lost the job that uh, I had enjoyed, and now I didn't know what
Mm.
to do. So I'd lost a sense of direction as well. So the losses are not necessarily just physical things or tangible things. They're often like things that we don't we don't ex- we don't think about them until they're gone. So yeah, so the grieving process, anger is one piece of that.
Mhm.
The anger is often raging against why are things the way they are and what can I do to change them,
Yeah.
to to get things back to a place where I feel more comfortable. Um, and again, the intensity has a lot to do with how long I've been holding that, and how long, whether or not I've been working with it or trying to squash it.
Yeah. Yeah. You just you answered everything that I asked, and because I know that was kind of a long question, the
Yes.
way that I kind of formatted it, but you went in and answered everything from start to finish,
Mm,
and hopefully you guys were listening and taking notes. If not, please replay and listen to that again because basically Neville gave you an entire scenario of what happened when it was just a little small root,
mm,
but basically how it grew out of control and it
mm,
got to the point that he lost sense of direction,
mm,
and I've seen people that some people that I'm connected to, they've been in that same place that you just described, Neville,
mm,
but unfortunately the circle that they are in, it's basically a circle of all like-minded people,
mm,
and no disrespect, it's people that just don't think outside of the box. They
mm,
never have any positive type of feedback to give you
mm,
because everybody in that circle is thinking the same way, and
mm,
basically everybody in that circle is pretty much backed in a corner in a dark spot. So you remain in that place when you're going through things like that because you don't have anyone to reach out to. The people
mm,
that you are sharing what you're going through with, they can't offer you any type of solution
mm,
because they basically are going through the same thing that you're going through.
mm,
So you have to make sure that you are reaching out to people that, like Neville said earlier, they may not be a certified counselor, but someone that have knowledge that can literally help you grow out of that space that you're in. And if not, someone that that has the resources to point you in that right direction
mm,
so you can get help for what you're going through, because sometimes the people that we're connected to, unfortunately, they can't help us grow out of
mm,
that situation that we're currently in. So
mm,
you have to be, and don't feel like, don't let your pride cause you not to reach out and ask for help. You know, it's all about walking through that humility
mm,
and being able to grow out of that place you're in. Like we said earlier, when it get to that point that, you shut down, and when you shut down, nothing good is going to come out of you shutting down.
mm,
So you have to open your mouth and, connect with people that's going to help you grow out, of that dark place that you're in. It's mandatory.
mm. Yeah, and I think it's really interesting that you make the comment there about the circle of people that you're surrounding yourself with. Um, sometimes it's not a solution that we actually need. Sometimes we can find the solution given enough time.
Mhm.
Okay, but what we actually need is somebody who's going to believe in us, even when we're in a really difficult situation, and that's not always easy because the when I'm walking through a very difficult situation, it can be very, very hard for the people around me to know what to do. They may not have any sense of, like, they're sort of like, do I find out more about what's going on? Can I handle that? Do I want to know? And we we as humans, I mean, again, this whole thing about emotions, we like the good emotions, we like the ones that make us feel good. We're not so great with the ones that don't make us feel good. And watching somebody else who is suffering or somebody else who is dealing with difficult circumstances, sometimes we keep our distance from that. And that it can be an easy thing to do because it's like, oh, I don't know if I can carry that, or I don't want to be connected with because that's going to bring me down, and that compounds the problem for the person. So
Yeah.
the isolation can go in both directions. So it's like,
Mhm.
okay, I might isolate myself when I'm not feeling great, but the fact that I'm not feeling great may also generate a sense of distance from other people, where other people move away because they can't handle being there. So rather than going in saying I've got to have a solution for the person, probably one of the first things that might be really helpful for supporting somebody who is in a difficult situation is to just offer to be there to listen,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, without without feeling that you need to provide a solution. Um, the solution may come through you listening to them, but you don't have to be the one that generates that. So,
Right.
so what's actually really important for people is to know that they're seen and that they're heard, that their experience may not, you don't have to understand it 100%, but that their experience is actually acknowledged for what it is. And I think our tendency is that I'm uncomfortable with the way you're feeling. I want to hurry you through that so
Mhm.
that we can all get to those good feelings again, or those feelings that we like to have. And rushing people through that process is not helpful. It's like the grieving process, whatever it is that you're grieving, has its own time frame. There's not you can't sit there and say it should take you a month or 3 months or a year. If there's something that's been huge that you've lost, you can continue to grieve that for your whole life, because it's like there's a hole that's been left by whatever it is that's no longer there. And those holes usually can't be replaced, and they're definitely not going to be forgotten. And the goal is not to forget. The grieving thing is not about forgetting what happened. It's about coming to terms with it and learning to live with whatever it is that hole is, and then continuing to go to move with life. And yeah, it's kind of tricky even talking about it, because so often we sit there and say it's like I hate it when I have people that sit there and talk about grief and say I just need to get on, just need to move on and get over it. It's like you're feeling grief, you're grieving because something really important has been lost to you. It's like, what is getting over it? What exactly does that mean?
Right. Right.
So what
Yeah.
exactly does that mean? Um, it's like you and I have both lost family members. It's like, how do you get over that? There's a hole in our families where somebody was there and now they're not.
Mhm.
They're not physically
Yeah.
present anymore. It's like getting over it is probably not the right term. Maybe
Mhm.
it's more about accepting what's happened, and learning to live with the absence of this thing, and coming to a place where the absence and the loss is no longer the defining part of our life. It becomes a memory. It becomes something that's still important, and we may still feel things about it, and we're allowed to, um, because it held a special place in our life at one time, and it may still.
Yeah.
Mm,
Man, this is good, Neville. This is
mm,
good, man. I definitely appreciate you
mm,
giving us this knowledge. You really, really helped me.
mm,
If no one else got anything from this, I definitely did.
mm.
Um, before we close, is there anything that you would like to leave with the listeners based off of what we spoke on tonight?
I guess what I'd like to leave the listeners with is just learn to make friends with your emotions. Your emotions are not there to cause you problems. Your emotions are actually there. They've been given by God. They are they have a function. They have a role to play. And the more we get comfortable with the range of emotions that we experience, and the more that we understand why they're showing up, the more we can work with them and work and stay in good health. So, emotional health ripples out to your physical health and your mental health. So, if you're paying attention to your emotions and learning to work with them instead of work against them, um, you're more likely to be healthy and respond well in not just within yourself, but in the wider world. So, I guess my encouragement is make friends with your emotions.
Yes, I love that. Make friends with your emotions, because if not, it's going to kind of slow up your process of you living out a healthy life. I love how you sum that up, uh, because if you continue to act out in the wrong ways, as we discussed, it can just push you into a bad spot and you will start to bleed on everything and everyone around you. So, yeah, if you if this spoke to you this evening, then you definitely need to deal with it immediately. Deal with it. Um, it's so much in life to live for, and I just I'm in a place today that if I get emotional, you know, I try to do my best, to catch it within 60 seconds if I'm acting out in a way that I shouldn't be. I do my best to, apply that 60-second rule and do a quick self inventory and start to put in the work. Because if we don't act on it, as Neville just summed up, it's it will definitely prevent us from living out a healthy life. So I pray that these words spoke to you tonight, these amazing words, amazing tools that Neville gave you. I pray that it spoke to you. If you think you missed something, or if you feel like you didn't get anything, you definitely need to go back and listen again. And I guarantee you, if you are on your phone, kind of got a little distracted, go back and listen again, because I promise you, these words are definitely going to bless you, and they're going to give you definitely have some tools that you can take away and apply it to your life, or someone that you know that you're connected to that's going through something. This may give you the opportunity to be assistance to them. But more than anything, as Neville pointed out, make sure you listen, because the main thing is getting them to the point that they will open up and start to talk. So if you get them to the point that they will open up and start to talk, listen. Don't try to get no advice. Don't try to stop them from talking and start to offer advice. Listen. Let them know that you're listening. And then when they feel comfortable talking to you, trust me, they're gonna stop and they're gonna look to you and wait for you to give them some advice. That's when you can pour into them. So yeah, we thank you guys for tapping in. Make sure when you view this in the header, I will have all Neville's information in there. So if you would like a one-on-one with him, I will have his link in the footer of that as well. And he'll be happy to work you into his schedule. He does amazing work. And hey, if you are in need, one of the things that I told myself this year was I was going to invest. into bettering myself. And if that's you as well, and you made that pledge as well, this brother right here is a great person to invest in to grow. So, and he didn't even know I was going to do this. That was not the intention of him being my guest, but
Mhm.
yeah, he's an amazing brother. So make sure you check that footer. I will have all of his information. If you would like to connect with him, please do so, and you can thank me later. Yeah. Yeah, but with that being said, we thank you guys for tapping in. You have an amazing week. Remember, God loves you. And when all else is said and done, if you feel that you don't have anyone to talk to God about it. And I guarantee you, He will direct your path and He will connect you with the right person that you need to assist you on whatever it is that you're going through. With that being said, you guys have an amazing week. Until next time, remember, no matter what you're going through, you can always bounce back better. Have an amazing week.